My next guest, well, she's a friend of the program, a friend of Rhema, and she was a regular contributor to a show that I used to co-host with Diane Campbell. Then her life got extremely busy, standing as a list MP for New Zealand First, and by the skin of her teeth, uh, being elected in. And since she's become an MP, she's made quite a splash already in Parliament and been very, very busy indeed. So I'm very grateful for her making the time to be on the program today. Tanya Unkovich, kia ora. Good morning.
Kia ora, good morning. I'll always make time for you guys, Andrew. You know that.
Hey, really do appreciate you taking the time to chat with us about something which I know that you're very passionate about, palliative care. Talk to us about why you felt it was important to draft some new legislation to propose this as a bill. What's your own personal story behind this, Tanya?
Well, look, I've supported so many people at the end stage of their life, so much so that in my mid-30s, I went and studied to be a therapist, and I specialized in the area of grief. Then my father was diagnosed, then my mother was diagnosed. They both survived, but then my late husband, Phil, was diagnosed when I was 40, and he passed away of cancer.
Yeah.
And just in the last 3 years, both of my parents have passed away, but I've walked beside so many people on that journey. And it was what I ended up specializing in my coaching practice as well. You know, one of the things that comes up for so many people is unresolved grief. So I really wanted to address the palliative care system. I really wanted to go and speak to hospices and say, what do you need? What is missing? Because I know the importance of not only dying well, but also being beside someone as well, for you to experience that. It helps the healing process so much.
There is tremendous work done by hospice organisations around New Zealand, but from your point of view, and especially when it comes to the bill that is you're proposing, what
Yes.
is palliative care, and what should be the standard or the baseline for what we provide for all New Zealanders?
Well, palliative care is ensuring that someone dies with dignity, that they have comfort, they are terminally ill, and the remainder of their life is without pain, without the concerns, to enable family to be around them as well. It's about ensuring dignity at the end stage of one's life. And what we're noticing here in New Zealand is that it's not always equitable,
Mm-hmm.
especially for people in remote areas. You know, they don't get that specialist care that they need at times. And hospice, God bless them,
Yeah.
they work so hard. And there are hundreds and hundreds, and I'll give it another hundreds
Yeah.
of volunteers who give of their time. And where would we be without them? So they are currently government funded by approximately 65% thereabouts. So that means they need to go out and fundraise the rest. And we all know that money is short, you know, so everyone has to try and do their bit. So it was very important for me to raise awareness of this and just wave the flag, but more importantly, raise awareness for all of New Zealand to say, this is what we need. It's something we're all going to face.
Yeah.
So let's start chipping in now.
It is, I suppose, an essential part of life. It's an essential
Yes.
part of the health service provided here in New Zealand. It seems unusual that it is partly funded. If we had, the hip replacement team, they're running a second-hand shop and a bake sale to get the money that they need in order to reach their quota for operations. It would be an outrage. But
Yes,
this
yes.
is the case for hospice and palliative care in New Zealand in some cases.
Well, hospice see death as actually a part of life. That is how they view it. And even under the World Health Organization, there is a right to health, even in death.
Yeah.
So it's important that we say access to palliative care is a right for all of us, children, elderly, people in remote areas. No matter what your financial position is, we all have the right to that equitable access of good, well, the highest quality care that we can have. So
Yeah.
it's important that we bring awareness to them, and hence the bill.
You mentioned a couple of times the importance of end-of-life care and death with dignity. These are both terms that have been used in the euthanasia debate, and of course the euthanasia policies are under review at the moment to see whether or not the structures and the safeguards are in place. And I know that there's another bill coming before the House looking at reducing some of the restrictions on for euthanasia in New Zealand. These two bills, in some ways, they're both talking about the same issue, but coming from very different ideological, even spiritual points of view, Tanya.
Yes. And, my concern is that, what if someone lives out in a remote area and they go, oh, gosh, I'm just a burden to everyone. There's no way anyone can get to me. I'm in so much pain. I may choose the other. And it's not something they really want to do, but they're making a decision based on some form of pressure.
Yeah.
So it's so important that we have this available, that we say we all have a right to access to palliative care. That's the important line for me, and why I'm wanting to bring it to everyone's attention. Now, it's something that I started as soon as I became an MP. So I've been working on this for a long time. You'll see on my social media posts, I go to every hospice whenever I'm out of town, and I will continue to do so. It is just such a dear place in my heart because, I know how much better it was for Phil in his passing. I know that my grieving process was so different, knowing I could be beside my loved ones while they were taking their final breaths and had the time to say they weren't in pain. It helped my grieving process. So there's so many areas to this that I really wanted to highlight.
And hey, in some ways, there isn't end-of-life choice fully unless there is proper palliative care available for everyone, that it's not a postcode lottery, that it doesn't depend on what neighbourhood you live in or your access to funds and resources. And the point that you make is so important. Yes, it's important for the person who is dying, but it's also vitally important for those that are grieving as well.
Well, that's true. The mental health area is just so out there at the moment because people's mental health is not as good as it once was. And I see it's really declined over the past few years. And one of the recurring themes I'm seeing is the grief after this last 2 or 3 years of either being separated, losing loved ones. You couldn't be at their funerals. You couldn't say goodbye. So they've got this trauma now, and this needs to stop. We need to help the families during that time when you're saying goodbye to your loved one. It's vital, I feel, in order for ongoing joy in life.
What is the bill basically, and what would you hope that it will change? What are the things that will be different as a result of this proposed legislation, Tanya?
Well, it is going to amend 2 current acts, and what it will do is, in a way, provide obligations and mandates for the Minister of Health and also for Health New Zealand to ensure that a palliative care strategy is documented and outlined. So not only does it have to be described, but it also needs to adhere to certain things that have already been listed in the bill on what needs to happen. And also they need to report on an annual basis, have they been doing what they said they were going to do, right? So they're going to be accountable. So that's very important, that not only is the care plan documented, but there is accountability as well, and also accountability by locality to ensure that everyone in New Zealand has equitable access.
You're presenting this bill as a New Zealand First MP. In terms of the response from the House, generally from the coalition government, do you think that this will get the support that it needs to cross the line? How optimistic are you, Tanya?
Well, I believe with God, everything is possible, Andrew, you know me. It's actually a members' bill. So it was in the hands of Simon O'Connor prior to this. And I got permission from Simon to carry it forward. We needed to make quite a few amendments to it. So it's now gone into what's called the biscuit tin. So all members' bills go in there, and then it will, God willing, be pulled out as soon as possible. And this is where I'm going to ask for everyone to say their prayers for me, because the sooner this gets pulled out of the tin, the better.
Yep.
And then it will be debated in the House.
Now, and hey, from there, though, I suppose some of the concerns with this, I suppose everybody in New Zealand wants there to be better healthcare for all New Zealanders, including at the end of life. But we also have a situation where the health budgets are in crisis. We don't have enough money for everybody to get the healthcare that they deserve. Some people might be concerned that this bill, this proposal, would add extra financial pressure. Do you think that will be a concern? Do you think that will be an obstacle the bill would need to overcome?
Look, no, I personally don't believe that. I believe that there is always a way where there is a will.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't mean that you need to bring in extra funding, but you need to just spend differently and be more mindful on where the money goes and less wastage. So if we can do that, then I do believe that this will be supported.
I think this
How
is...
can you not support it?
Oh, exactly. It makes so much sense, but I know that there'll be other people saying, okay, we can only make the budget stretch so far, and I know the health minister is caught between a rock and a hard place, and everybody wants money for their particular area of focus. That the heart may say one thing, but I suppose the finances may push people in another direction. You'll certainly get the support of some of your colleagues, but there may be some political pushback, or even pushback for financial reasons.
Well, look, I believe this is something that's going to affect every single one of us in the House and in New Zealand. And how can we not all get behind it? And I often say to people, what would happen if all of those volunteers at hospice suddenly dropped tools and said, can't do this anymore?
Yeah.
What would happen? Imagine that. So sometimes we need to look at not the cost of doing something, but what is the cost of not doing this going to be, not only financially, but emotionally, in the whole society. So I do believe there are better questions to ask when it comes to important issues like this.
You're asking such important questions, and I sincerely pray that it gets pulled from the proverbial biscuit tin as soon as possible, and is received well, debated vigorously, and gets, I suppose, added to the legislation in New Zealand. Tanya, we really appreciate what you do, both in the House and the work that you do in the community, travelling around, visiting the hospice. If people wanted to find out more about the bill and what's involved there, is a way which people can connect either with that information or with you directly?
Well, I'm all over social media, as is New Zealand First, but we also have a website. And if you go to the New Zealand First website, you will see all the information about the bill. There is a link specifically on this bill.
Yep. So do check that out. And as you say, encourage people to pray that this one gets not only selected, but goes through and becomes legislation. Tanya, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today.
It's always my pleasure.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.